Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our latest edition of the Growth Playbook with myself, Kim Clark, and my dad, Alan Beaulieu. Today's topic, we are going to be going over January's jobs numbers. So I know, Dad, you have a bunch of research and perspective to share on on the subject, and so I'm just looking forward to diving into today's topic.
Thanks, Kim. I am, and like we try to do every time we do this, is make it meaningful for businesses, so that it's not just a number, but what does it mean, and what's the takeaway? So we'll certainly want to deal with that too. There's an interesting shift that occurred, so that's part of the takeaway. But let's start with the number first, and the source of the number is the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, and their latest and greatest number for January. Now, keep in mind before I even begin that this is a seasonally adjusted number. So the government, and a lot of people do this, it's not nefarious in any way, but the government seasonally adjusted, which I don't know why. We've always used not seasonally adjusted because that's rates of change takes care of all that, but they like to seasonally adjust. All that means is this number can be revised six ways to Sunday and four times in between. And, we got to just kind of take it for what it's worth at this point. But it was released, and the private sector jobs grew by a much stronger than expected 175,000,
Hmm.
which the market liked and people liked. And it was like, whoa, the economy's kicking in here, and some people were suggesting that means that interest rates aren't likely to go down at the next meeting, and they're probably right. But you know me, I'm just like, okay, so what? What jobs? Where? Tell me more about that.
Peel the
So,
onion.
yeah, peel the onion back and see if it makes me cry. So, I did, and there's a good online source for that, Trading Economics, and or no, I guess I got this from the BLS online, and most of the jobs, 137,000 jobs out of the 175,000 came from the healthcare, social assistance, and private education.
Okay.
So that's what we've been saying for a long time. If you want a job going into this future of ours, those are the places to be. And healthcare can pay well, social assistance not as much, and private education not as much, but they'll have a job.
Mhm.
So if anybody listening has, son, daughter, or nephew, cousin, whatever, that's saying, hey, what field should I get into? Way to go. Probably stay away from federal employment.
Fair.
So I mean, so it took a lot of the wow out of that number, right? When you realize it's in a particular, most of it, it's actually 78% in a particular silo. The next largest one was in professional and business services, 34,000 jobs. And that makes sense. Services does better than the industrial manufacturing, wholesale distribution, that sort of thing. And construction, this one surprised me, gained 33,000 jobs in January. That, that's what I said too. So I dove deeper into that number because they provide all that fun stuff. And it's not in building construction. Those weren't the construction workers that they're talking about. It's the specialized specialty trade contractors, the electricians, the plumbers, the HVAC, because that's service work and there's a shortage in this country. So again, people looking for a career path or a business that's going to do better in downtimes, such as what's coming, and even do better for the next 4 years, that's where it's at. And there's a strong demand, and it's going to stay strong too as we go forward. Is my official forecast. So I think that some part of our listenership is probably going to be good. That's good news. We like that, and some part's going to be, oh, well, that means there's not a lot happening in my particular vertical, and therefore that number doesn't mean much good to me. And you'd be right.
We're not going to sugarcoat it.
We're not going to. It's just not going to happen. Uh, One of the interesting things that happened, though, and for years since right after COVID through 2024, there were more job openings, a lot more job openings than there were unemployed persons, to the extent that there was like half of half a person for every job opening at its most uh, significant divergence. So that's when the employers really had the advantage, right? Because you had all these people out. I mean, the employees had all the advantage because I can pick which job I want. So employers had to really be nice and do all sorts of fun things. This year, it's kind of flattened out. And in the last couple of months, especially in January, it shifted so that there are, and I want to read the numbers to get it right, there are 6.54 million job openings, but 7.5 million people
Hmm.
that were unemployed. Now, not all of them want jobs, but so it's pretty even. But that means that there's been this shift. There's still people out there, but the employers are going to maybe find it easier to find people, which means those people that are looking for a job may find it harder to get a job. They might be remembering 3 years ago where you walk out your door, you got a job. And now the numbers are suggesting that's not the case. So if you have a child that is saying, I just can't find a job, 3 years ago, I would have told people, well, they're lying to you. They're not really trying. They're just going for a walk. But now it could easily be true because businesses slow down in their hiring.
Hmm.
Some of that's AI, but not that much. And some of it's just the environment is sluggish. So if you are an employer and you're hiring, that does not mean you don't need Kathleen, because you do. And you can explain Kathleen better than I can. You work with her more than I do, but I like the work she does. It doesn't mean that you don't have to do good as a entity so that you can attract Gen Zs who want to do good in this world. Doesn't mean you don't have to pay well because you do, but it does mean it's not as tight as it was. And for some people, that's a good thing, obviously. And for others, it explains what's happening here. The number is good, but my life isn't so good. My business can't really find a lot of help. And that's because it's a slow growth, not a lot of people out there environment. And the unemployment number ticked down to 4.3%, which is not the way that people who want lower interest rates want that number to go. So all in all, the number is like, wow, on the surface, really good. You dive down, and it's really kind of like if you're in the medical industry, great. And for most of the rest, manufacturing added 4,000 jobs. I mean, there's not a lot of growth going on in the jobs, which is an indicator, although it's a lagging indicator, it still has the word indicator attached. Things are going to be kind of slogging along here as we go forward. And I bet you this number gets revised downward significantly before we're done.
Hmm.
On the inflation front, which does relate to this, people have been getting nice year-over-year increases, which is really nice, and I'm glad for them. Uh, and they've been hearing people in the media, and I won't name names, but there's been people in the media going, prices are down, they're way down, and they're probably going, I don't see that. I don't feel that. What's going on? And the beat keeps going on. Prices are way down because inflation, I'm going to use the right term, slowed to 2.4%. People would say inflation went down.
Ah, yep.
And there's the difference. We're in a disinflation period, my friends. Disinflation means the rate of inflation is slowing. That's not anywhere like prices are way down. It just means they're not going up as fast. And to prove that point, I looked at the numbers and I have them right in front of me because I can't memorize all these numbers. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS, and it has to do with the January and for the year, last 12 months, I should say, inflation rate. So for if your food at home did not go down, it went up 0.2% for the month, which doesn't sound like much, but it's 2.9% for the year.
Hmm.
So if you got a 3% raise, it all went to food. It's just bang, it's gone because we want to eat. Strange as that may seem. What did go down is energy and gasoline for the year was down 7.5%, and for the month down 3.2%. I don't know if you noticed that at the pump, but I did. And as I been fueling up, I'm going, wow, this is nice. I'm enjoying this. It doesn't cost as much, and that's a real break for people. So maybe while they're trying to put food on the table, they're not feeding their car so much. So that's kind of nice. Other things that have gone up though have been shelter. For the year, it went up 3%. So again, if you got your 3% raise, food went up 3%, shelter went up 3%. Uh-oh. Transportation services, which I never paid enough attention to, but I have come to realize how important it is. Buses for people, trains for people. That's gone up for the year, and for the month, it had a pretty healthy jump of 1.4%. And lastly, but of very much important, is medical care services went up for the month, but for the year went up 3.9%. So in the areas that really matter to people, 2.4%, you know, anybody says, well, this is a really good trend in inflation is not thinking about people who are getting by, people who have credit cards, people who are just trying to figure out tomorrow. Um, Elon Musk doesn't care. Jeff Bezos doesn't care. And probably you and I don't really care, but for a lot of people, it matters. So, as an employer, for those listening to us, if you understand the people working for you, if they still seem stressed and tense, and you're hearing all this good news, you can't figure out why, it's because it doesn't apply to them. The
Mm.
good news just isn't reaching them. And the only thing that you can do to alleviate that is to really consider what wage increases will be necessary as we go forward. Um, and when we talk next week, Kim, we're going to be talking about why, one of the reasons why there'll be more inflation coming. So as people are planning their budgets between this week and next week, I would like you to walk away thinking, I really have to be planning a more of an increase than I think I'm going to have to, because this 2.4% makes me think, I give a 2.4% raise and they'll be fine. They won't be, and they'll be unhappy. Unhappy people are not productive people. Unproductive people make you less profitable, and on the story goes. Uh, so the bottom line for me is take this information and next week's, and please think hard about what kind of increase you have to give to your rank and file, and I don't mean just unions, uh, this year. It'll be, I think, an important factor in how you keep the team motivated and keep your business productive. Now, that means they're going to have to raise prices, which is where you come in, Kim, because you can't always just raise prices. One of the worst things I've seen people do, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, is to say, well, I'll just tell them my costs have gone up, so I have to raise my price. Um, I've always, not always, that's an overstatement. I've come to realize that's a you problem, not a me problem.
Yeah, well, and that's using the cost plus pricing strategy, which I'm not a fan of. I like the value-based pricing. So your
Yeah,
value perception is in alignment with what you're charging. And so if your costs are increasing and you need to push some of that off to the customer by increasing your prices, then how can you adjust the value perception? And that's not even necessarily by something physical or even a tangible thing. It can be just a re-messaged um, focus that you bring to the attention of the client.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Otherwise, if you were going to raise your price 5% just to pick a number, and you go to Ace Hardware and there's the store brand that's a little cheaper, then unless I know why yours is better, I'm going to go with the store brand, right? Because a screwdriver is a screwdriver, unless you tell me why I should go with your your screwdriver. It's a difficult world to just raise price for no reason, in my opinion.
That and the other side of the equation, like if you have to increase where you're spending internally, such as on wages, like we're discussing, then where else can you cut costs? Um,
Ah, good point.
it might even be if we foresee, say, the next 4 years are going to be difficult and you know you can't keep up the pace with price increases, maybe you yourself even opt instead of X bonus you typically give yourself at the end of the year, some of that goes towards wage increases or just other ways that you can look to cut in costs around the office or around the plant or the production facility or whatever the case may be.
You're right. Businesses can stay profitable, but they got to be really smart about it.
Mhm.
And it's like chickens in the chicken coop. There's always something coming around to eat them little fellas.
Like possums.
Possum. So shoot the possum and get on with it. All right. Well, Kim, that's the number, and it kind. I heard numerous people going, "Great number," and I just walked away thinking, only for some, but the underlying number is that we're still slogging it out, and don't get enthusiastic because of that number.
And what I heard through all of that is in that same vein. I'm just going to rephrase it in that it's great for, like you said, some, but it actually creates a very tricky environment for many. Where if I was a business owner, I would be sitting down thinking through this conversation long and hard and the implications and how to put some strategies into place to offset it because you also have the economy that's not super robust. I've been calling it lazy. And so people aren't seeing robust growth. And then if you are in an area where you are seeing increased demands because of these pockets that we're seeing growing more than others, but they can't get the labor to fill it because the labor may be going elsewhere, maybe they're too regional or whatever the case may be. So there's a lot of pressure on leadership teams right now in this environment.
That's right. And robots and AI will be a big help someday, but right now, I think you got to nip and tuck where you can, raise prices based on value as you can, and you can remain profitable. But it's not going to be as easy as it once was.
Lots of thinking and agility.
Yes, absolutely. But it can be done, as you know. It's just a matter of being willing to say how we did it for the last 5 years isn't necessarily how we're going to do it for the next 5 years. And a lot of people can't make that shift. They're stuck in their mode. And get out of the mode and go forward. Be well, prosper.
And try out new things.
That's it. That's you. All right.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing this for us to discuss today, and it was really nice to see you. I'll see you next week.
Good to see you, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and we hope you have a great week and talk with you soon. Bye, Dad.
Bye, Kim.
And end scene.
That's probably about 20 minutes, 15 minutes, 17, something like that. So that's good. I don't like long ones. Somebody sent me something that was an hour long to watch, and I went, no, heck no.
No. No, I like keeping them short. Keeping them short is good. Okay. So then the next one is company rankings. What are we,
Country ranking, country rankings,
country rankings? And we're
and
looking,
entrepreneurship.
and what?
Yeah, well, we can make it one shorter one, just talk about country rankings and how the U.S. has fallen in terms of reputation, why, and what it means. And that'll be a fairly short one. And then we can save entrepreneurship for our next recording and make them two separate things.
Hmm, that works.
Okay,
Yeah, we can do that. I'll just tee
okay.
it up that we'll talk about that next week.
Right. And this
Okay.
one I subtly teed up as far as more inflation coming, which is what's in view here. Oh,
I'm still recording, so I've got that covered. Fathom has not popped back in like it did on the last. It was really random how it popped back in, but hopefully it doesn't do it again this time.
yeah.
Okay, so I can get this teed up.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the latest episode on the Growth Playbook with myself, Kim Clark, and my dad, Alan Beaulieu. Today, I'm excited for this topic just because it feels so different from approaches that we've taken over the course of the last year in our topics. Dad has done a lot of research on country rankings. And today we're going to focus on the country ranking, global rankings of countries based on their reputation. And next week's we'll be covering entrepreneurship. So I'm very curious just to see where we land. We, as in the United States, land on that global ranking, and then any implications and perspectives that you have on that, Dad. So thanks for doing the research and for bringing this to us.
Oh, you're welcome. And I enjoy this. This is my happy place when I get to do this. And don't want anybody to misunderstand what we're talking about here. Is my big concern. The United States is a great country, and we are ranked number one in the world in terms of military power, and we are um, a nation that does a lot of good and all the rest of that. So nobody take this the wrong way is how I have to preface it because it's not good what follows.
That was kind of a given with the way you started.
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody, no hate mail,
Number
and
30.
if only it was that good.
Oh no.
Yeah. Now the source for this is the Visual Capitalist, which a lot of people have heard of, and you can Google it if you want to know more about it. And this was done by a survey company, and Visual Capitalist published the information. It's a survey of G7 citizens.
Okay.
Now, G7 citizens, I want to let people know who they are in case they're not up on your list. G7 in alphabetical order, it's Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the US. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage that they're not surveying all kinds of people who don't like us. They're not surveying people who are not allies and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was important. And that when they surveyed on reputation, I want to make sure we talked about just for a minute, in really less than a minute, what do they mean by that? Because that's what I wondered. I had to do some digging. Reputation's kind of a vague term. So reputation was based upon questions that dealt with trust, respect, uh, admiration, and overall image. Okay, so that's what they mean by reputation. It's based, and it is weighted on those four things. Uh,
Equally?
that I don't know. Thank you for asking the question. I don't know the answer to that.
Sorry. You've
No,
given
that's
me the
fine.
statistical brain.
That's fine. I'll look it up for next time, though.
I appreciate
Okay.
that because curiosity kills the Kimberly.
That's true. But the possum brings her back. So in any
Yeah.
event, we have here uh, not a surprise for number one. The country with the best reputation in the world is ranks high in many, many categories, not military power, but they rank high in banking, they rank high in trade, business, and lots of things. And that's Switzerland, the Swiss. Number one in the world for reputation. I'm going to go through a couple, actually more than a couple, because I think the ranking is interesting. Number two in the world is Canada. And in 2024, they were number four. And this year, they're 25, they're number two. So they moved up. Interesting in there, if you think about it, is because there was a spat between the US and Canada was giving some what for, and then, they would change and stuff. But the world, these G7 countries seem to have given them a little pat on the back for their gumption. Uh, you know, I don't know much about their baseball teams because, I don't follow the sport, but somebody liked the way they took a swing.
Mm.
After that is Norway, Sweden, and Finland, which most people pay absolutely no attention to Norway, Sweden, and Finland, but in this country, but they are important countries and they are three, four, and five respectively. Japan is number eight. They moved from 12 to eight. And we covered a couple of weeks ago how Japan has had some financial difficulties. So I'm not sure that was probably after the survey was done, is my guess. But in any event, uh, for a nation that is essentially dying, they're still well thought of. And that kind of is interesting to me. And then we get into other nations we know, and these were part of the G7. UK is number 18, Germany is number 20, France is 21, Ukraine is number 21, excuse me, 18 for UK, 20 for Germany, 21 for France, 26 for Ukraine, and they moved from 31 to 26. in terms of reputation. You don't get that here from a lot of people when you talk about Ukraine, but in the G7 overall, they went up in their reputation ranking. And then the United States, I'm going to skip a bunch now because it gets boring, fell from 30 to 48 out of 60. 48 out of 60. In case you're wondering where China was at, they're the same as last year at 57. And Russia has the lowest reputation out of the 60 nations ranked they're at number 60. So we're at better than China and Russia, but below Ukraine and other nations in the G7 citizenship world, which obviously made me wonder why.
Mm.
What did we do wrong? I mean, we were at 30, which is not stellar, but it was the biggest fall of any nation uh, in that year. What happened last year, Kim, that made the all G7 nations take a step back and go, "Huh?"
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. A whole bunch of things from last year pop into my head.
Yeah, well, that's it.
I
There
mean,
were a
there's
lot.
no one thing that I can put my finger on.
Well, you're absolutely right. There were a lot of things that went on last year, and they kind of kept the world off balance. And then
Kinda still is.
it still is. We're going to put 50% tariffs on. We're going to take it back and only make it 25%. We're going to put tariffs here. We're going to put tariffs. Then we're going to roll those back. And there's just been this instability. So where uh, I think when we look at the list again, trust. We're your allies, and you came at us with guns blazing and that sort of stuff. So maybe trust and respect, admiration, and overall image took a hit last year because of the perhaps earnest desire to protect domestic manufacturing, but in a way that really put people back on their heels. And if it was just that, we could probably go, oh, the heck with them. You know? Go away. We don't care what you think anyways. You know, we're us, you're you, and it's better to be us than you and that sort of stuff. But what? Something happened because of that. And there's no direct line, but it's a maybe. But I'm not the only one who thinks this way. Maybe that's why, according to the Federal Reserve, St. Louis Federal Reserve, it's not, they didn't do this. They gave me this statistic. The value of the US dollar against the world currencies fell 7% in the last year.
Mm.
And we've talked before about how people seem to be edging away from the dollar. And I want to talk more about that with you sometime in the future and gold sometime in the future. But right now, the dollar fell in value. And to most people, uh, it's like, so what? You know, if people are not valuing the dollar the way they want it, which means they're not buying the dollar, they're not using the dollar, they're not buying G bonds, government bonds the way that they were, all the rest of that. So what? Well, it does matter. So it matters because with a cheaper dollar, it reduces purchasing power of that dollar. So if you bought something for $100, now it would cost you in theory $107 in purchasing power. So what you're bringing home doesn't have the same punch that it used to bring home, especially on imported goods. If you're really a fan of avocados, they're more expensive. And a lot of people are. That's why I use that one. So that reduced purchasing power is important to people in what their daily life. It's also a potential source of inflation because those imported goods have to be bought with more dollars, which means whoever imports them have to sell them for more dollars, and that's called inflation. So again, the guacamole or the avocados or whatever, avocados,
Mhm.
costs more. And that's inflation. And it can happen in all the flowers we import. It can happen in the bananas. It can happen in coffee beans. It can happen in all kinds of things we're not really paying attention to, but they start costing more. Remember last week we talked about the 2.9% in food taken at home?
Yep.
That's inflation. A reduced purchasing power can mean that prices are going to be going up that way. And if prices go up and it creates inflation, that means that interest rates are going to go up in the future. And if interest rates are going to go up, inflation is going to go up, and the dollar is going to continue to be soft, that means that everybody listening to us has to go back to last week's show episode, what we're talking about, which is you're going to have to rethink your pricing strategy. You're going to have to rethink how much you're going to be paying people because what's been going on may sound like it's all out there. But there are three reasons given for the dollar weakening is the uncertainty in foreign policies and especially tariffs, are dramatically increased federal debt, and this has caused a shift in sentiment about the U.S. So again, I think a lot of, and I've started thinking a lot more globally since I've retired,
Hmm.
and I think it's easy to say that's out there, but we're connected to everything out there, and that has a big impact on here. And so folks who are reading other folks or listening to other people who say that inflation is going to remain soft and it's not an issue, this is a quiet period. It's still inflation, it's disinflation, again, see last week, but it will be picking up again later this year. I would bet your future on it, Kim.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad I believe you're right. Well, that's one thing that we've been saying for many years now, right? Is that this whole period in time going through the, especially through the second half of this decade, like inflation's not going away. This is the new norm, and you just have to find ways to manage and run your business in it and during it.
Right. And people have always asked us why, and it was like, well, we'll know when we get there. We knew demographics was going to be a reason. We knew debt was going to be a reason. And now we find that this reputation factor and the dollar devaluation. By the way, just as factoid, we went down 7% in that same time period. The euro went up 8%.
Mm.
Yeah. That's definitely well, didn't see that puppy coming. So we're seeing more of the whys of what we've been talking about. And to me that puts pillars underneath your thinking and your plan that, it's just not a theory anymore. This is happening.
Yeah.
And, and we need to plan on it as we go forward and inflation proof your business as much as you possibly can, which we should probably have a couple pieces on that as we go along on inflation proofing your business.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. It's going to be needed for all those listening in. It's funny that, not funny, but I like how you said that it's happening and these are the pillars underneath the concept. I was recently talking with Frank about some of the stuff you and I have been talking about, and he's like, Kim, why are you getting so like excited about this? You've been talking about this since like I met you pretty much, and like you knew this was coming. This wasn't a shock. I'm like, yeah, but now it's happening. And it's just fascinating to see the where it's all coming from supporting the concept that we've been talking about the whole time. But to your point, now having very specific instances of what's driving certain reactions gives us in the business world the ability to be much more specific in our tactics and strategies to still be profitable.
Yeah, absolutely right. And if I may just add to that quickly, when you know something's coming, because we've been talking about it for so long, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Then you start hearing the things we've been talking about for the last month, and it's like, oh crap, it's here.
Yeah.
We better start building that bomb shelter.
Yeah. Yeah, or geez, that time went by really fast.
Yes, yes. Sometime I'll have to talk to your husband about the amount of nuclear weapons that are growing in the world and how many more nuclear missiles China has than they had a couple of years ago and that sort of stuff. I think he would be interested in knowing that. It might give him something to talk about for a long time.
It'd be fun if we could see if we could get him onto the show. I don't know if he'd be up for it, but it would be fun to have him on the show.
It would be. He would be. It'd be interesting to know his thoughts. Well, in any event, that's what I want to share. Reputation, we took a hit. Doesn't mean we're a bad country because we rank really well in other areas. It's just that people look at us and go, I don't know if I can trust you. And that's what's been happening with the dollar.
Which makes complete sense. I mean, I am very much a patriot. As you know, my husband, retired military police. Like, we are a very patriotic family. Um, but even I look around and the word that comes to mind is instability. There's just a lot of instability throughout the nation right now, and so it makes sense to me that outside nations see that instability as well. And so, if reputation, it would make sense why these other countries would be ranked higher. Um,
Yeah, a lot higher.
hmm.
Or at least we're ahead of China and Russia.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for that. I was like, oh no, where's he going with this? That's it. Cancel the show. We're all
That's right. That's right. Too discouraging.
done.
Oh well, so that's the takeaway. It's here, it's real, and plan for the second half of the year because it's no longer a theory. It's not just this, it's the things you and I have been talking about. Um, so make those plans, write the book, put it on the shelf, be ready to take on the shelf and start with page one.
Yep. I love it. And we'll continue in our mission of helping businesses thrive even during periods of uncertainty and or the inflationary periods and everything else. So are ways to still be profitable and run healthy, strong businesses. This isn't doomsday, end of the world type of thing. It's just we now have specific examples of where things are falling, and now let's use that to help make sure that we still remain profitable.
Yes, absolutely. And next time we'll talk about entrepreneurs.
Next time, entrepreneurs. Looking forward to it. Well, Dad, thank you again for all your research, and thank you everyone for tuning in to our growth playbook. It was nice to see you, and I hope you have a good week.